All right, my friends, it is time for the hands-free drive to work. You know, we're all busy, so this was designed so that you can press play while you steer yourself down the road, so that ultimately you can steer yourself through the weeds of your own work. We said all work brings up weeds. There's frustration, there's disappointments, there's naysayers from the outside saying, you're not good enough, you can't do it. So we've got to be able to steer ourselves and manage ourselves or lead ourselves through those weeds of work so that ultimately we can continue to do productive, engaged work, so that we don't do like 85% of people I saw in a survey not long ago that hate their jobs, or that 75% I saw in another survey say that they're unengaged in their work. That's not, they're actively disengaged in their work. That doesn't mean they're just kind of passing the time. That means they're trying to get out of work. So we don't want to be that way. We want to be people who are not just led around by our day, but that we actually lead ourselves through the weeds of work. You know, Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person, he said that time management was actually a misnomer, that time management as we describe it is actually mislabeled, is what he's saying. He said there's no such thing as time management. Time, as the song says, marches on. However, you can manage yourself in time, or manage yourself through time, he says. And that's what we're trying to do, is trying to think about how do we steer ourselves or manage ourselves through the weeds of work. And I just want to tell you quickly today, we need a process. One of the ways that we can become great self-managers, one of the ways we can become incredibly productive and effective, is that we develop a process. You know, Livy, my 8-year-old, she is so into cooking right now. She loves to bake. She told me in Allie the other night, she's like, I'm going to be on Kids Baking Championship. And Anna Brooks heard her talking about it, and she was like, Anna Brooks says to Livy, Livy, I don't think you can win Kids Baking Championship. See, you got a naysayer before you even get out of the gate, before you even try one thing. You got somebody saying, I don't even think you can do this. And Livy was like, Anna Brooks, why would you say that to me? I can win Kids Baking Championship one day. And I wasn't in the room. Allie was telling me about this, and Allie said, absolutely. You know, you have just as good an opportunity as anybody can. You know, I thought it was so funny that she had a naysayer right off the get-go, but 2, that she knew that she needed to develop a process. Even at 8 years old, she's watching these kids. And you know this if you've ever cooked one thing. You know, you don't just, for the most part, people don't just throw a dash of this and a dash of that, especially in the beginning when they're starting to learn how to cook. They don't just throw things together. They don't just do how they feel or what makes them feel good, because they know what makes them feel good will actually lead to something that's not even edible. So they need a process. Livy, if she wants to learn how to be a great baker, she needs to learn a process, a way to go about her baking when she starts that process. You know, same for musicians. You know, some musicians, like me, they just learn enough to get by. They learn enough so that they can play a song and sing along with it, and it looks like they're a pretty decent musician. But when it comes down to it, they don't have some of the proficient skills that somebody who goes through the process, somebody who learns scales early on a guitar, somebody who, even with their voice, who learns to sing scales and learns to train their voice and really manage their voice well. Somebody who on the keyboard maybe plays scales on the piano instead of just goes right into trying to play Billy Joel song. I'm speaking from experience here. That's what I did. So what you end up with, check this out. What you end up with is somebody who can get by, but you end up with somebody who's not excellent. You end up having somebody who can get by. You think about the baker. If Livy just says, you know what, I'm just going to do kind of what feels good and what tastes good to me, and she'll end up being to a point where she can get by. She can make a cake for the, family Easter gathering that we just had, but she'll never win a kids baking championship. She'll never be a chef at a 5-star restaurant because she hasn't learned the process. She can get by, but she hadn't learned the process. See, or you could be a musician like me, and you can say, man, this guy, he's good. He can play that guitar. I can play that guitar, and people will say, oh, I didn't know you know how to play guitar, but there'll never be a time where you see me, teaching guitar lessons like some of my friends who went through the process. They learned to manage their fingers. They learned to manage the way they strummed. They didn't just say, how do I get by? They actually went through the process of trying to become great guitar players, great piano players. And see, that's what we can do. If we develop a process to manage ourselves, to steer ourselves through the weeds of work, I'll tell you, let me finish that thought. We can become great. We can become highly, highly productive. We can become highly engaged in our work, which will absolutely increase our productivity. And this is the thing. I know that a lot of us, we look at these concepts and are like, okay, well, what do I do? Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I think it's so interesting that we jump to that and say, okay, well, I know you're saying you need a process, but really you're not telling me what to do. But here's the thing. Nobody knows what you need to do better than you. Perfect timing. I got a stop sign right here so I can just point to you. Nobody can manage you. And that's why self-management is such an important piece of really our careers. Our work, self-management is such a big piece of it, because nobody really knows today when you're doing creative and engaged work, when you're doing things like trying to influence your customers to really bind that relationship together, or if you're trying to sell new products, or if you're trying to sell new services, if you're trying to influence a patient to follow through with a treatment plan, or if you're trying to influence a student to learn the material that you're putting in front of them. See, all of us, we're trying to do this kind of influential, we're doing some form of sales, really. And when we're doing that, when we're trying to sell ideas, or we're trying to influence people to move in a certain direction, we don't just need to know what to do. We need a process, because even in all those situations, there's going to be frustrations, there's going to be disappointments. And so we need a process that we can follow. We need a process that we can go by every single day. When the frustration comes, when the disappointments come, when the failure comes, when Anna Brooks jumps in and says, you can't do that. We need a process by which we lead ourselves on a daily basis. And that's what I'm saying we need to develop. I saw this firsthand not many years ago. I had qualified for, we do a sales leadership council, as a lot of you know. We do a sales leadership council in our company, and all across the United States. There's about 1 or 2% of our agents who qualify for sales leadership council. And so the first time I ever qualified for it, this was a few years ago, I thought, when I go to this meeting, I'm gonna talk to some of these people. I'm gonna say, what do you do differently than most people? What I thought, surely there's a common thread between all of these individuals. And so I looked for personality. I thought, man, yeah, that maybe that's it. Everybody I talk to will have like this dynamic personality, and they'll just be somebody that people are drawn to and they really want to do business with. And I thought, that's it. When I walk into this room, I'm going to meet a lot of people who are just, charismatic. That's what I thought. I walked in the door, and there were some charismatic people there, very charismatic. And there were some people who could barely look me in the eyes because they were uncomfortable in that setting. There were some people there, I thought maybe it'll be, people who are pretty. Maybe it'll be people who, when they put them up on a billboard, they look really nice. Maybe that's who the ones who will be those top performers. And when I got there were some really pretty people in the room, and there were some people ugly as me. It was all over the place. And I thought about all the personality traits that I often think of for highly productive or good salespeople. And you know what? Almost none of those things were true about the room. There were some of those people, but there was something different that was more consistent throughout the room than that. As I began to talk to each person and have conversations about their routine, that's what came up that was different. They had a process that they followed every single day. If people said they did a great job, they followed the process. If people told them they did a terrible job, they followed the process. If there was a lot of results that day, they followed the process. If there weren't many results that day, they followed the process. And so if you're going out today and you're going to meet with customers, and you know that your relationship with those customers at any level are going to influence your company. It's going to either build a relationship or tear down a relationship. You need a process. How am I going to lead myself through this conversation? If this person says something to offend me, how am I going to respond? I need a process. I need to know that before I go into it. If today I'm going to sell a product, I need a process by which I lead myself, not I just respond to whatever's going on and hope somebody calls me today, or shoot an ad out there online and say, hope somebody responds. I need a process. If I'm going to make sure that today students, even in this crazy environment, are taught well, that they're invested in, if their future is invested in today, I need a process by which to lead myself. I don't just wake up and say, hey, you know what do we do today? No, I need a process that I can work through every day. And listen, a lot of us have those processes for normal times, and this is a different time. And so we need to create new processes right now so that we can steer ourselves well through the weeds of our work. I hope this is helpful to you today. Do it. Sit down. Take 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour if it takes it, and just write down, here are the steps I'm going to follow each day. 3 questions I'll give you real quick that you always need to answer while you're steering yourself. 1, what is the guiding purpose of my work? If I chase money or comfort or my own lack of stress, I don't want to put myself under stress. If I chase all that, if I go after those things, it will steer me in a direction I end up not wanting to go. But if I always look at needs first, that gets me going in the right direction. So what is the guiding purpose of my work? A met need is necessarily precedes, comes before any profits or incentives or lack of stress that comes back to me. Number 1. Number 2 is, how do I achieve that purpose? What are the character traits that I needed to develop today? Not just what are the things I need to do. That's number 3. The third question is, okay, what do I do? And that is an important question that only you can answer. But question 1 and 2 set the stage for question 3. 1, what is the guiding purpose of my work? 2, who achieves that purpose? Who achieves that purpose? And when I think about who, I have to learn the character traits that person has that actually achieves that productive work. And today, work into my schedule developing some of those very traits. If I don't start today, 6 months from now, I'll be in the same spot. And then number 3, how do they do it? What are the steps that they take? What's the process that they follow? So answer those 3 questions. Sit down and take a few minutes. Create yourself a process that's guided by your needs of the neighbors and the neighborhoods that your work serves, that fits in the fact that I need to personally develop character traits that sustain these kind of decisions. And then number 3, I just say, how do I do it? What are the steps that I take? What are we call it watering, not growing fruit? What are the things I can do that are watering? Because these things, like watering a plant, internal growth happens as a result of my watering, but I can't do internal growth. I can only do the watering. And so we keep watering. What are the things that I can do, the actions that I can take that nobody can stop me from taking? Develop a process like that, and you will be incredibly productive, incredibly engaged in your work. And listen, your customers, clients, students, patients, your neighborhood will be better off because of it. Thank you for listening to the Hands Free Drive to Work.